think ROCCAT is the stronger team, but they play more standard and we can like outplay them this way because standard is predictable.
Steve wants to find power of evil and he does!
Oh, wow, wow, wow.
They are famous for being like surprising, so we'll have to watch out for many things.
Vizacci's the next focus. I've seen this with Unicorns so many times, and it's going to happen again. Hylissang is down, and ROCCAT channeled their inner fanatic to defend their Nexus turrets.
It's not like they have the best players, right? But they use some different strats.
A quadra kill just like that for the Orianna. Can he secure it up? Yes, he can. A pentakill for Power of Evil.
We adapt really fast and we can surprise the enemy.
We got it, go, we got it, go!
It's going to be difficult just because they can pull off something weird. But for now, let's take it step by step.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day 2 of the European LCS Summer Quarterfinals. We're coming to you live from our studio in Berlin, Germany. As you can see, the crowd is absolutely ready to go for this quarterfinal. Just a few minutes ago, ROCCAT was at the pool talking some strats. Push them in. No, just kidding. And there are the Unicorns of Love walking in the building, getting ready for their quarterfinal with Horo there right at the end, of course. Hello, I'm Evie Schok supporter, and alongside me is James Stress O'Leary and Martin the Fisho Lunge as we look towards our second quarterfinal matchup of the summer playoffs between the Unicorns of Love and ROCCAT. Let's start by pulling up that bracket after yesterday's action, and well, what a landslide victory for H2K over Giants.
Blink and you miss it was the name of yesterday's game because 3-0 real quick win for H2K over the Giants. And, you know, now they have to go on and face Origin in the next semi-final coming up on Saturday this coming week. So that's a really interesting series between those two, but we're not quite at the semi-finals.
No, I mean, another interesting one is this quarterfinal. Unicorns ROCCAT should be a lot closer compared to what we saw yesterday between the two teams. Obviously, the winner will go on and face Fnatic, so not exactly the ideal opponent you want to face, but still you're going to fight for more championship points and so on.
Yeah, that is what the important thing is here as well, those championship points. Yesterday, H2K got at least 90 championship points for the season, which ties them with the Unicorns of Love for now, which adds another extra dimension to this quarterfinal.
Yes, a lot of pressure on today's game for the Unicorns. The Unicorns must win today, not only to go through the playoffs, but to keep their chances of going to Worlds alive. Otherwise, H2K, they're in the prime position to qualify for Worlds from the championship
If Fnatic
points.
wins, which
yes.
is what we are.
If Fnatic wins. I mean, if things go as a lot of people are predicting, the team with the most championship points at the end of the season, they're going to clinch that second seed into the World Championships.
Yeah, and of course the other teams, if you're not the one who's winning the EU LCS, you will play the regionals or the regional qualifier after our World Final, after our EU LCS final. Could be the World Final, who knows. As you can see here, Giants already locked in their spot because, again, they're lowest in the points. All the teams in playoffs will be qualified for this regionals here. However, you got to start at the first round if you're low on championship points. That is Giants that didn't pick up anything from last split. And then you work your way up. If you win after taking basically 3 best out of 5s in Giants situation here, you make it to Worlds as a 3rd spot.
Yeah, it also means that 3 out of the 6 teams that were in the playoffs we will see at Worlds. As I said, it might be scary or a good thought depending on who you're supporting. But that does bring us to today's quarterfinal match where the 4th seed, the Unicorns of Love, will face the 5th seed, plays ROCCAT in a best of 5. And clear your schedule because as soon as things wrap up here in Berlin, we'll send it over to Los Angeles for the North American LCS quarterfinal between Gravity and Team Solo Mid.
And that's a really intriguing story that's come behind this, the quarterfinal over in America. You know, here we've had Fnatic remain victorious. Normally it'd be TSM, Cloud9 at the top of North America, but TSM, they're in the quarterfinals, not getting straight through to the semifinals. So a lot of pressure and a lot on the line for the TSM and Gravity lineups later today.
And also just a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, how does it work now with the coaching staff over there? Can Bjergsen once again become the big carry, or is it the rest of the team that got to step up around him? There's so many questions for Team Solo Mid and also Gravity. I mean, they've been very exciting to watch.
Yeah.
I don't think this game is going to be more than at least 4. It's going to be, sorry, 4 at least 5 games.
Yeah, I think for both series we're in for quite a treat. And as we turn to the matchup at hand, we want to get your thoughts. Hop on Twitter and tell us which champion are you still waiting to see played on patch 5.14 and why?
The Gangplank.
Yeah.
We saw him. Okay, we saw him in NA. It was played yesterday. It was okay, I think, in Europe. A lot of the top laners probably have already practiced the Gangplank. They're probably ready to pull him out, but there are safer picks to go for. So unless you are like down maybe 2-0 and you gotta try and turn it around, you want to try something surprising, Gangplank could be the way to go.
I'm along the same lines. The Tahm Kench is one that I'd like to see. We have seen it just like we've seen a little of the Gangplank, but I think both champions, we need to see how players are refining them. Gangplank, it's the barrel mechanics. Tahm Kench, how do you utilize the ultimate? How do you utilize the devour mechanic? There's a lot still to learn from those champions.
Tahm Kench, Gangplank, let us know who you still want to see on the Rift and tweet at OWL Esports. Of course, use that hashtag LCS, and we'll check out all your answers later here on the desk. And now, it's time to take a look at the two teams setting up on stage right now, the Unicorns of Love and ROCCAT. For the UOL, they will be starting on the blue side for Game 1. Vizicachi, Horo, Power of Evil, Vardax, Hylissang, and Sheepy, of course, with their brand new jungler in the mix, setting up on stage against ROCCAT, who are on the red side for this one, with, of course, Steve, Jankos, Nukeduck, Mr. Rawls, Vander, and Yamato Cannon. Well, if we look at the story of these two teams, maybe through the entire season, they are 2-2. In my opinion, maybe ROCCAT looking better in the last couple of weeks, even though the Unicorns have a better record.
Right. I think the key here for both teams, it's inconsistency. I mean, that's obviously not the key to win for them. That's something they need to fix. And it's been the same story. I mean, we see ROCCAT the last few weeks beat some of the top teams and then still lose to some of the bottom teams. Unicorns have done the same. And I feel like playstyle-wise, there's just a lot of stuff they need to work on. I mean, for ROCCAT, way too passive in the early game, and Unicorns of Love play way too much around Power of Evil. They gotta get these side lanes going, otherwise it's not gonna work out.
I think it's one of the real big points about this game is both teams like to end up playing passive in the early game. They've been playing Power of Evil on these later scaling mid laners, and you know, just as a team playing around that, they've been a little bit rough when it comes to the early game in a lot of the games we've seen.
I almost feel it's kind of weird saying Unicorns play passive in the early game, because I think that's been the problem. They don't. They tend to again play super aggressive, even though they don't have the right champions for it. Again, when they play the APS role in the mid lane, they would try and force ganks around Power of Evil, and you on APS role in the early game, you do nothing. That's where you gotta, again, play a bit more passive, defensive warding, or you need to play again around these side lanes. They're the ones who can make plays in the early game, not your scaling mid laner. Wait for late, then he's gonna do fine. And that's what we have seen for Unicorns. Once they reach the late game, it's working out.
But too many times they do fall behind at that 20-minute mark, and then they can't pick it up anymore.
No, again, so honestly, we had a graphic here showing Unicorns of Love at 20 minutes all split long. You will notice in 12 out of 18 games, they've been behind. Now, okay, they've come back 4 times. That is the most as well in the EU LCS, so credit to them for bringing it back. But this is just way too often we see these scaling compositions and a team who doesn't know how to hit the brakes. You know, say, this is not the time to fight. We don't need to contest this dragon. We don't have to go for a risky tower dive. We can wait it out. ROCCAT is a team that struggles when it comes to making the aggressive plays. So if that remains the same, Unicorns might be able to get it to late game and then pull out some wins.
They might, but to me, that mid lane matchup is incredibly important. Yesterday, we saw Giants, of course, who lean so much on Pepinero, who has been going for those scaling champions, but the meta seems to have shifted out of his favor, and I feel that maybe for Power of Evil, he's in the same boat.
He's in a very similar boat, yeah. And honestly, Power of Evil, when we look at it, in the first 15 minutes of the game, he's actually the lowest ranked player when it comes to kill participation at 15 minutes. Nukeduck, on the other side, you can see considerably more involved, 9, 4, and 10 overall at 15 minutes. But honestly, Nukeduck, just in general, has been going from strength to strength throughout this split. We saw it, the turnaround with the Varus, with the Victor, and just week after week, he's actually been putting in very strong performances.
Finally, almost, as you say.
Sure, I mean, he's living up to the hype. We saw also when he faced Fnatic, managed to get some kills on February, even forcing him to flash into a wall. I mean, that's skill. But the key thing here also between these two guys is I feel like Nukeduck's champion pool is a lot more meta. He's played Victor, he's played a lot of Azir as well. Again, he took the Varus once it became a big thing with the poke. And the Yasuo pick coming in, which is so extremely strong against other poke champions. And what we see Unicorns play time and time again is these scaling poke champions. The Yasuo pick would either have to be a ban, or Unicorns have to step away from that approach and play something different. Maybe we can see the likes of the Syndra coming in, even though that can still be tricky for Power of Evil in that mid lane. But we need more early game focus if they want to play the style we normally see, because they cannot pick these poke champs into a Yasuo, into the likes of a Victor as well, where Nuke Dog can really punish him in the laning phase because Jankos will gank for him. Obviously, the poke could work fine later on then, but that's not the case.
You know, I think it's really interesting. We heard Hylissang talk earlier about how, you know, predictability can play into this with regards to ROCCAT. I actually think, and we were talking about this earlier, how predictable Unicorns can become at this point as well. We've looked at their picks and bans, very similar week on week. So it'll be interesting to see whether we do see any of the Gouda that the Unicorns have brought out. But one thing that isn't as predictable this time around, they've changed up their jungler. Yep. The jungle substitution now with Horo coming in for Gilius does add a different dynamic here on this matchup.
Yeah, definitely, and that is so important, especially when you're playing ROCCAT. And how good or how bad ROCCAT has been doing throughout the split of the season, Jankos has always been there. He's a rock for that team.
Yeah, he's the rock. He's the backbone of everything ROCCAT does in the early game. If he has a good start, and that's also why you see the 100%, you know, kill participation on the first plots, because the lanes don't really get the kills on their own. They need Jankos to come and assist them. So when he knows what to do in the early game, if he knows exactly where he should apply the pressure, ROCCAT can start getting early leads. But again, it's not consistent enough. That's been the problem for ROCCAT as a team. Suddenly they mess up a lane swap, and the next time Jankos is ganking the wrong lane, or he misses that first gank here and it goes horribly wrong, and then everything just slows down. The team becomes more reactive than proactive, and then we start getting these late game team fights where everything can happen, and it's not even guaranteed ROCCAT is going to win there.
That's quite interesting, because Horo is in there now, so might not necessarily know all of his jungle pathing or where he's going to go, which could be a plus or a minus for the Unicorns of Love, because they have to, with their sometimes sloppy decision-making, there's a new voice now in there. How will it work?
It's a new voice. It's also a voice that we haven't seen in competitive since leaving MYM in the spring split. I was actually talking to Sheepy's dad a little bit before, who has a lot to do with the Unicorns team, and he was talking to me about how Horo's fitting in. Apparently fitting in very well, and just in general seems to be fixing a lot of the little problems that the Unicorns of Love have had. However, one of the big problems they've had is to do with that shot calling. And it's a problem that we've seen with Horo a little bit as well, is if a team isn't always backing up his calls, Horo's the type of player that is going to go for an engage if he sees it. If the team aren't behind him, the Unicorns of Love are going to have to really difficultly balance team fights, because we've seen how they play. It's all on getting Power of Evil into those team fights. If he's not on the same page as Horo, it's going to be a tough set of series.
Yeah. All in all, it's going to be a really, really tense series, I think. And as the team's near picks and bans for Game 1, let's check in with Pulse, who's on stage with the coaches for the UOL and ROCCAT.
Thank you very much, Afia. I'm stood here with Yamato and Sheepy ahead of their game just to talk about how they think this one's going to go. Now, first off, Yamato Cannon, the community has criticized you for potential inconsistencies on your team, but over the last couple of weeks, you guys have definitely stepped up. Do you feel that's going to play a factor into playoffs?
I feel there's a consistency in our inconsistency. There's usually the first game of the week is the bad game, and then the second game of the week is the good game. So with that in mind, I feel a best of 5 is the perfect kind of setting for us.
Okay, well, Sheepy, I kind of want to ask you the same sort of question, but you guys, you were 9-9 when you were in spring, and now coming into this one as well in this playoffs, it didn't seem to matter in spring. Do you think the Unicorns are going to perform just as well in summer?
I think there's no real excuse for us. I think we're just inconsistent, but with Horo coming in, I think a lot of this stuff just has come really natural to us, and we're trying to improve as much as possible about that. I'm just really excited to see how things are planning out right now, because we really try to fix the inconsistency from us.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Horo. I actually want to ask you about that. Now coming into this best of 5, how has it been like integrating Horo into the team?
He's honestly a fantastic guy. He has helped me as well a lot with coaching, because the mindset he's bringing into the team, I think, is exactly what you need in a team. And I think that his mindset is also very consistent based. So coming from the Korean scene, I think this will help us a lot.
Oh, very interesting. We'll see how that works out, Sheepy. Now, Yamato, you guys are going up against the Unicorns. We know the Unicorns have a propensity towards Gouda. Have you prepared anything special for this matchup?
Well, they prepare cheese, I prepare ham. So you could say this best of 5 is a sandwich, but I think Unicorns of Love is going to go home hungry.
Go home hungry. Do you have anything to answer from that one, Sheepy?
Well, either way, they'll go ham or they go home. So let's see.
Oh, and on that bombshell, we're going to find out from Jankos what it means to him to be in the summer playoffs.
being in playoffs is so important. Like, I don't know, it's just such a relief that we still can be the good team, you know, that we are not relegation team, that we are not like super bad. Like maybe we are not the best either. Maybe there's like better teams out there still, but we can prove ourselves in playoffs. And I think in a BO5 our team should work better.
Well, I'm so